right. Welcome into this week's episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Glad to have you guys here. Today we're going to be talking about something that every dad I work with deals with, and that's how to stay consistent when life just doesn't slow down. And so whether it's work, it's the kids, travel, stress, you name it, something's always kind of getting in the way. So today what we're going to talk about is figuring out how to make this work for your life. How to keep showing up when things get messy, and inevitably they always will. You're not lazy. You're not lazy. You don't struggle because you're lazy. I don't believe you're lazy. I think you work really hard. I think you work really hard at work. You try your best to be the best dad you can be. You try and carve out time for you and your wife. I know you're working hard. The reason a lot of times dads struggle is because they're just overwhelmed. Like you're working all day, right? You're rushing home, trying to make it for dinner. You're helping with homework, baths, bedtime. Maybe your kids are in lots of sports right now, and you just got a ton going on. And then maybe you're scrolling through Instagram and you see someone say, just make time for yourself. Yeah, of course, that's what we want to do. We want to make time for ourselves, but you may be in a season in your life right now where that's just not always the case. Is not always doable. It's not always as simple as that. So you don't need more motivation. You just need a better strategy. One that's going to work when you're tired, when you're distracted, or when you're just running around dropping kids off at sports practice like crazy. And so the first strategy we're going to go into today, we're going to talk about three of them. We're going to talk about lowering the bar but raising the floor. And so the first shift is to kind of get out of this, that all or nothing mindset. I know I've talked about that before, but I want you to stop trying to be perfect. When we try and be perfect all the time and we mess up, we inevitably are going to fail in our minds, right? We're not failing, we're making progress. But if we set the bar so high where we're never actually going to reach it, we don't give ourselves grace. And I think as men, as dads, as guys, that's something that is a little foreign to us. I know for me, that's hard. I'm very, I was having a conversation with somebody last week and kind of just going through some different struggles and things like this, and kind of explaining kind of my mindset, how I operate and things like that. And, it was very, for them, it was very easy to see, like, I am very, the way I describe it is I have a growth mindset with everybody else around me, with the clients I work with, when I'm working with students or something, or even just like my kids or my wife. I have a very much of a growth mindset with them, but I have very much a fixed mindset with myself at times, and it causes a lot of struggle. It causes a lot of just kind of disconnect, and it to be honest, it ends up leading in stress because I want to do one thing and I'm doing another thing here. And I think it's very common for a lot of men where we're a lot harder on ourselves because we think we should know better. And so we want to get out of this all or nothing thing. We want to get out of this having to try and be perfect all the time. So instead of trying to be perfect, we're just going to raise our minimum standards. I'm kind of preaching to myself on this at times too, because these are things. I heard a quote the other day in an audiobook I was listening to, and he said something about, like, a lot of times authors write books of things they have mastered or things they hope they want to become. And I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact quote, but I think that's very true. A lot of times you see people online and you think, oh, they have all these things mastered. But a lot of times the content they're creating, the things that they're putting out there, are who they are hoping to be. Because it not only, like, obviously the reading, listening, is a great way to learn things, but being able to actually teach somebody else it helps kind of solidify what you're learning and helps fill in the gaps too. It helps if there are gaps. And so I know for me, that's the same case. Like I talk about fitness, I talk about nutrition every single day with my clients. I talk about pretty much the same topics all the time, but they're great reminders for myself. I know with kids, with my own kids, like I can't just tell them once and expect them to just have it down pat, right? Obviously, some kids pick things up quicker than others, but we need reminders. We need reminders. But for ourselves, we're very hard on ourselves. We think we should get it the first time. Oh yeah, I know I need to get more protein in. All right, I've now got it done. I'm going to start hitting my protein goal every single day. If you've gone 30, 40, 50 years of your life and you haven't tracked your food, if you haven't been consistent with getting lots of protein in, you can't expect it to become a habit overnight. And so, let's work on, stop trying to be so hard on ourselves, stop trying to be so perfect, and just raising the minimum standard. And so, for example, here, let's say your workout plan is 4 days a week, which is great. That if you can work out 4 days a week, awesome. But let's set your minimum. Let's say your bare minimum when everything goes sideways. Like what does that look like? Maybe that's just 20 minutes. Maybe that's a walk. Maybe that's a couple sets of push-ups and squats at home, right? If you can't hit the full plan, we got to figure out how we can still, hit the floor, right? Just not hit the floor, right? Not hit the floor, but also not hit the ceiling there. So we're not throwing in the towel. And so consistency beats intensity when life is crazy. So we got to figure out, what our bare minimum is there, right? And so maybe when we're looking at workouts here, maybe let's look at nutrition here. If you can't, maybe you plan and prep every single meal. You're looking at your nutrition. You want to have the exact amount of calories, and you're trying to get enough protein in, and you're trying to get fruits and vegetables in. But when you go to your in-laws' house and they're cooking dinner for you, you're probably not going to ask your mother-in-law to measure things out or, make some modifications for you. And so, what does it look like then? Well, your bare minimum could be one, I have one plate, or I focus on protein and I always eat my protein before I eat the starchy carbs or something like that. Just create these for yourself. Like, obviously this is something that I can help you with, but this has got to be personal for you. And so if you're somebody right now who really loves running, maybe on those days where you can't get in your 6 miles you want to run or something, maybe you just get in 10 minutes or something, and that could be your minimum there. When life's crazy, we got to stay consistent. So strategy one there is lower the bar but raise the floor. So we're not going all the way down. We're not doing nothing. Something is always better than nothing. Now, strategy 2 here is going to be anchor to something that matters. And so every one of my clients who sticks with it long term, they're not just doing it to lose 20 pounds. They've got something deeper that they're anchored to. I think it's Simon Sinek that wrote the book Find Your Why, where he's talking about just finding the deeper reasoning behind why you're trying to do something. And so for me, it's being able to run around with my kids without pain. Not sitting on the sidelines, not having to watch them. I've had 2 hip surgeries in the past year. My first one was last May of 2024, and then I had one recently in January of 2025. And so for the past year, I really haven't been able to do much. And before that, long list. I don't need to get into it right now, but I had a long list of low back pain, hip issues, sciatica, nerve issues, all sorts of things surrounding my hips. And so for the past year, I've not been able to do a lot, and that is it's taken a very big toll on me. It's taken a very big mental toll on me, not being able to do those things and just watching my kids are young. I love playing with them. My son loves sports. I'm helping coach his t-ball team right now, so that's wonderful. But he last night he asked me, like, he said Dad, when are you going to be able to run again? I said, soon, buddy. Like, I'm really hoping so. And so this is something that that's my why. Yes, I want I have gym goals. I have, cardio goals, things like that I'm working towards. But I want to be able to run around with my kids without having to worry about my back, without having to worry about my hips hurting. And so that's my why. And so for you, maybe it's showing your kids, just what it looks like to follow through, right? When you're tempted to quit, like you don't need more willpower. Yes, willpower is something that can come in handy, but you need to remember, why this even matters in the first place. And so finding your why. And again, this isn't something you can just write down once. I have all my clients at the beginning of the year, we work on our, our 3-month or 6-month or long-term goals, what we're going for, but we can't just look at it once. If we just look at it once and it's just writing something down, we want to review this regularly, because there are going to be times when you don't feel like doing this. And that's okay. That just means you're human. Right? The motivation is going to come and go. But we got to remember why we started to do this, because your kids aren't going to be up with you at 5 o'clock. Your kids aren't the ones that have to hit their protein goal. Your kids aren't the ones who are tracking their calories. Your kids aren't the one who has to put in the work in the gym. You're the one that still has to do it. And so you have to make this, you have to make a deeper reason. You got to find a why that's going to motivate you, but you also have to make it personal too. It's awesome. Yes. The clients I work with, the dads I work with, they love, they just want to do more for their kids. And that's part of my why as well. But you also have to have a personal component to it as well. Why? Why is this important to you? It's not shallow to have an aesthetic goal. If part of the reason why you want to work out is because you want to feel better, that is absolutely okay. That is more than okay, because when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, that improves your confidence. You're going to show up better at work. You're going to show up better for your wife. You're going to show up better for your kids. When you have more confidence, not cockiness, when you have more confidence, you're going to show up better in every area of your life. So strategy 2, anchor something that matters. The third strategy here is build a crazy week plan. And so just have a plan for your worst weeks. And so a lot of times, people have a plan that is set only for when things go really well. But if you can build a plan for when your schedule's packed, you've got family in town, you're traveling for work, you're still going to be able to make progress, and you're going to feel like you're building off that consistency that we talked about is going to happen. And every week may look different. You may travel a lot. You may have people come in town for work. You may be the one going out of town. You may have family staying with you. Your kids may have ball games every single night. And so create a plan that you can do when life doesn't go as planned, right? And so having a plan for when it doesn't go as planned. So maybe that's 3, simple workouts you can do anywhere. I haven't been doing this in a while because I like to use hotel gyms, but a lot of times when I would travel, I would bring resistance bands. I just throw them in my bag. And, you can get one of those door anchors, get a full body workout in there. And so that can be great for you. Every time I'm going out of town here later this week, I look at the hotel gym, figure out what I'm going to be able to do. For me, I also like to get up very early, and I try and keep things as close to what I do at home. And so I like to go on walks in the morning. So that's one of the habits I like to keep when I'm traveling. And so even when life is crazy, I know that if I can control the morning, then the rest of the day goes a little bit smoother. And so I can't maybe get everything I wanted to get done early on in the day if I was out of town, but I can get a lot of it in, and then the rest of the day goes a lot smoother. And so maybe for you that's picking 2 nutrition goals you can stick with no matter what, right? So life's crazy, you're traveling, you can't figure it out, and so one goal could be, you're getting protein in with every meal. Number 2 could be, you're eating slowly, you're eating until satisfied, or you're just hitting a step goal, right? If you're on vacation, the 2 things you could focus on are, number 1, getting protein in with every meal, making sure that's the first thing you eat, and number 2, hitting a step goal in. And so this is your crazy week plan, right? James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, says you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And so you're not failing because you're inconsistent. You're inconsistent because your plan doesn't fit your life. And so if you only win, if you're only making progress when everything's perfect, you're setting yourself up to lose. And so if you can find ways to do small wins, what I do with my clients is every single Wednesday, I ask them what their wins are. And I have them do this very intentionally. I got this idea. I believe Dan Sullivan, the author of him and Benjamin Hardy wrote The Gap and the Gain. And so when we're looking for wins here, right? Are we in the gap or are we in the gain? The gain is always kind of looking for the positive. This is a very short synopsis. The gap is when, we're kind of looking at the negative side of things. And so one thing I do with my clients is every single week we're looking for wins. And so what this does is this trains you throughout the week. They know I'm going to ask. They know I'm going to ask what their wins are. And so they are, having to report back what their wins are until they start searching for them. So if you can do this with yourself, right, at the end of each day, and one of the, I kind of have a recurring note in my phone. I set up a new one. I created a template for it. And so each day I have my most important tasks, things I want to get done, things that I'm hoping to get done, things that I can put on for later projects, things like that. And then at the end of it is like, what were the wins for the day? And so I'm always constantly looking for wins. And so if you can win, if you can find these wins, when life is crazy, that's when things start to change for you. And so staying consistent when life is crazy is really the key to long-term results, because you're a dad. You've got a lot going on. Things are probably always going to be hectic as long as kids are in the house. And so instead of, just waiting for things to slow down, just do what you can now. That concludes this episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Thank you for those of you who took time out of your busy schedules to listen. If you have any questions or comments or an idea for a topic for a future episode, please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to hear from you.